hey guys, this week the conversation is about the journey. So it's kind of about the journey. It's kind of like taking an aerial view of the whole thing, whatever the whole thing means to you, like either the whole project, the whole career, the whole life, whatever. It's taking an aerial view of all of it. Because we're coming to the end of this conversation, really, and hopefully it's the start of something new for you. But it's kind of I just wanted to, in these last few conversations, just take a slightly more aerial view of everything, just to see, to get a bigger context for what it is we're talking about, and see the lay of the land, and see all the different things that show up in that landscape, if that makes sense. Or some of the things, can't anticipate all of them, but some of them. So that's what we're doing this week. Hey, Steppy32, Adam, DJ Lincoln, Urban Rat, welcome back. George, hi. Let's start. And Ellen, hey. All right, so just a little bit of not housekeeping, but just tell you what's going on. So obviously we'll have our conversation. This week is about the journey, as I was just describing. And then I've got that question a question, should I say, that I've been asking around the projects that some people have undertaken. And we'll discuss the question at the end, just to let it percolate in your mind. The question is, what has become possible through you doing your project, or what has your project made possible? So it could be a different way of being, or it could be and don't answer just yet, we'll talk about it at the end, but just planting the seed in your mind. So it could be a different way of being, it could be that you've acquired skills that you didn't know you had, made contacts that you hadn't had, whatever for you wasn't possible before, now is possible as a result of your project. Tell me about that. And then also just going to give you dates of the last 3 live chats. But let's get started with this topic right now. So the journey. So what I've realized, especially as I've been doing what I've been doing for quite a long time, and this is, when I became a sort of a performer, a creative, I had a completely different relationship with life that has taken like a long time to cultivate, I suppose, for want of a better word. Prior to that, I don't know if some of you guys saw that post that I put up during the week of the curfew poster that's on the side of the building. That building is, when I worked there, it was from a different life. As I said in the text that I put under that blurb, I was, very much living, 9 to 5, didn't massively enjoy my job, was, just sort of getting through it to get to the weekend or get to the evening. I used to go out socializing a lot. I didn't ever save money because I was on a salary, so I never had savings. I'm pretty sure I never had savings during that period. And my job was kind of okay, or my relationship with my job was that the job was okay, but it wasn't my world. Do you know what I mean? And so for me, the journey really only started when I became it kind of started when I became a freelancer, in the sense of like, it was the first time that I was really starting to take responsibility for my life, because obviously being a freelancer, you can't mess around with that. Guys on here who are freelancers, what I'm talking about. Is like, it's a different order of responsibility that's required in your life compared to if you're on a salary. And I'm not saying that people on a salary aren't responsible, but there's a different requirement on yourself to be responsible, if that makes sense. You can't rely on the man anymore. You've got to start hustling. You've got to start, generating your own work. You've got to start managing your money differently. And so I think for me, that's where this journey began, because I started to think, okay, I need to start acquiring assets. My cousin gave me a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which, if you are struggling with money, not in the sense of generating it necessarily, but holding on to it, but also generating actually as well, I would highly, highly recommend this book, because it made a huge difference to me. It started the process of changing my life, and I don't say that in like, that's not a hyperbole, that it genuinely did, because I was so bad with money. So by the way, if you want to have comments, make comments, and questions, thoughts, chip them in. If they are nothing to do with the conversation, I will probably ignore them just so I don't lose my train of thought. And also, if you if I'm on a thought, I'll finish that thought and then come back and circle back to your comments and read them out, as long as they're on topic. If not, I just move on. Okay, so he gave me my cousin gave me this Rich Dad Poor Dad book, and it changed my life because it made me have a different relationship with money. And I say all that to say that that's kind of for me where this journey that I'm talking about now, the sort of creative one that we're all embarking on, that's where that's for me where it started. So, and yours may have already started. Yours may yet to you feel yours may yet. Hang on, I can't create this sentence I'm trying to say. Yours may have yet to start. Is that a proper sentence? I'm not sure. Anyways, yours may not have started yet, is basically what I'm trying to say. But this, like I say, is taking a more of an aerial view over the whole thing, because the journey specifically that we as creatives are on is a very brave one. It's a courageous one. I'm not talking about physical bravery, putting yourself in harm's way type of thing, but it takes a certain emotional robustness to be able to undertake this type of endeavor. It is not for the faint-hearted. I was the Fleabag actress that was on Sunday Brunch today. I caught a little bit of it, and she was saying, you just have to be super resilient in this game, no matter what it is you're doing, because in terms of jobs, we are well oversubscribed in the creative industries, aren't we? There's more people that want jobs than there are jobs and opportunities. So you have to be resilient about that, and you have to be tenacious, and you have to be great at your job, really, to be able to really sustain and make it in this game. Lolly, hey! And Rob has joined. Amber and Asha, hello. So in no particular order, but they seem to be in a bit of an order, I've just sort of put together various stages, I suppose, of the process. This is not a comprehensive list. This is not a finite list. There will be parts of the process that you're aware of that are specific to you that I don't mention, and things that I'll mention that aren't. So just as usual, cherry pick the bits that make sense to you, and that if they have nothing to do with your journey, that's all good. So starting, I think we can all relate to that. We've talked about starting a lot, so I don't need to say anything about that other than that, just to reiterate and to remind you guys that are struggling, because starting, ironically, is always a part of the process. No matter where in your journey you're at, starting is always something that a creative has to do, because you're always starting something new. So even though starting being a creative is an endeavor in itself, within that there are so many births that you have to create, and it is always hard. But what will distinguish you between somebody that might not make it and you who will make it is that your ability to overcome whatever fear you have of the blank canvas and begin. So take that first step. I'll remind you of the sort of saying or whatever that I've mentioned a few times, just that thing of, when you're trying to find your way home, if you're driving home in the dark, no street lights or whatever, and it's pitch, when you're driving through the countryside and it's just pitch black and terrifying, you put your headlamps on but it only illuminates the next 20 meters. It doesn't illuminate the entire journey home, but those 20 meters are all you need to be able to make it home, because it illuminates the next 20 meters and the next, and so on until you get home. And so when you begin a process, you don't, whether it's a project or a piece of work or even just beginning your career as a creative, you don't need to see from here to your destination lit, all perfectly lit. All you need to see is the next 20 meters, and you do that and you go for that, and then the next part of the journey, by journeying, will reveal itself. Hey, Carly and Stephen Sean, welcome. So, like the saying goes as well, a 1,000-mile journey starts with one step. And as I say, shit draft is more than most people have. So, you can take whichever one of those meaningful sayings you like. I prefer shit draft, the shit draft one, probably because I said it. No, but there is truth in that shit draft thing, because as we discussed last week or the week before, a shit draft is worth 1,000,000 times more than some good ideas in your head, because for those of you that have been down that road, that from there you can always improve it. You can't improve something that doesn't exist. Can't polish air, So creating that, and who says that has to be the final version? Even if you have to totally discard it and start again, no one needs to know about that. That can be your run-up. Who says that we only get one try at these things? Actors on here, what it's like when you're doing a self-tape. How many goes do you do? Because that the casting director isn't watching. Like, you can just have as many goes at it as you like, because who said that you're only allowed one take? So please, guys, go out, create shit drafts. Right? So that's the starting part of the journey. Hi, Paul. And Amber says, who's that book by? Rich. So it's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And the author is Rick something. I think it's Rick something. And I think he's Asian. I think so. I think he might be Japanese or Japanese American, something like that. But if you look up Rich Dad, Poor Dad, a bunch of stuff will come up, because it's a very, very famous book. It's one of those, top 10, I should imagine anyways, it's definitely a bestseller, and it's probably one of those sort of top 10 financial help books or self-help books or whatever. But it was, to be honest, I read it a long time ago, but I'm recommending it because it still resonates with me now. I hope that it's not like dreadfully outdated by the time you get to it. I doubt it will be. There might be some factual things, because there might be some things that have changed in the law and how financial instruments work or whatever. But the overall vibe of the book, I think will probably stand the test of time, and is definitely worth a look. Sean says at least 20 takes for me. There you go. Amber says Robert T. Kaios. Could be. To be honest with you, I would only recognize the name if I saw it next to Rich Dad Poor Dad, basically. If you buy a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad and it is not about money, then you need to tell the guy that did write the book about money to sue this other person for stealing the title of his book. So I think if you put in Rich Dad Poor Dad, you'll find it. And Potassium 3000, welcome. All right, so there's starting, okay, and then there's Amber's found it. Yeah, excellent, yay. And another part of our journey as creatives is this kind of energetic exchange that we're going to constantly be having, like with the industry, with different individuals, and with sort of people who are our team, as it were, people in the industry, other fellow creatives, and all the rest of it. And sometimes you're gonna feel like you're putting a lot out there. Sometimes you're going to feel like you need a lot. And to not feel alarmed by either one of those situations where you feel like, God, I'm putting so much work out there and nothing's coming back. Or I feel like I'm a leech on the industry. I'm just taking and I haven't contributed. There will be a balance and an ebb and flow to that. And sort of another thing related to the journey is that there will, as much as a flow state where you feel like, yeah, I'm vibing with the industry's feeling me right now, as much as that is an ideal situation, there will also be times when you do not feel a sense of flow. And that is as much an important part of the journey as when you do feel flow, because there's lessons to be learned from those times when there isn't flow. It's very easy to feel good about what you're doing when you're working, because obviously you're working, you've got what you've dreamed of, but most of the time in our line of work, opportunities are finite. There's usually a beginning and an end to them. Even if they say it's open-ended, i.e. like a relationship with an agent, a million things can happen. So it's still not as it's not as secure as, you know, obviously if you were to be working for a company or something like that. So there will always be this ebb and flow, and this feeling of there won't necessarily always be a flow of work towards you. And so one of the lessons is how do you be with that without it being about, I must find more work? Because that's like saying, I must find more cocaine. You know, that isn't going to serve you. Maybe what there is to do is to find a way to be with those quiet times, find the resourcefulness to, you know, be with all of that, so that the job is not where you get your happiness from. Maybe that's a more grounded way of being with the ebb and flow of the industry. Like I find that when I'm not busy, I do my mind does go to, it's all gone to shit, I'm never going to work again, like which Sainsbury's should I apply to, you know. But as soon as I start to generate my own projects, you know, my outlook completely changes. So my sense of value in my work isn't all derived from somebody giving me an opportunity. It's coming now from me saying, I'm going to write a script, or I'm going to try and direct a film, or I'm going to, you know, do you know what I mean? So that I'm not just sitting here tum-to-tumming waiting for the industry to, you know, hit me with the magic stick or whatever and go, it's you. I'm saying it's me in the meantime. And so that is I think that's an important part of our work, is to have the, for want of a better word, resourcefulness to be able to kind of generate that for yourself. I was speaking to an actor friend a little while ago, and she was saying how, you know, she'd just done this really big job, and she hadn't booked any auditions since, and it was kind of getting her down a bit. And I basically was saying to her, my advice is get other things going, so that you know, when that next job comes, is not, you know, your reason for waking up in the morning, or is that next job coming? Do you know what I mean? Like, your reason for waking up is something that you can generate, and then what the industry would like from you can be folded into that whole sort of offering that you're putting into the industry or into the world. You know, if like I said, well, I'm going to repeat myself again, but if your sense of satisfaction, if your sense of I am a valid creator only comes when opportunities are sent your way, then you're gonna struggle in this game, you know, really. Potassium 3000 says hello, and well, we got a superhero in our midst, guys. Superhero Dipole says, if you're not creating, you're waiting. Love this quote. Yes, I wholeheartedly agree with that. And I mean, that is it concisely said, you know, in those 6 words or whatever. That basically what I've been saying about this flow state thing is that, like, yeah, you haven't got to do anything, but people who do get off their ass and make things happen in between, it's not even downtime, it's your time. Those are the ones I feel tend to succeed. You know, you look at those YouTubers that have become successful, or actors who've started making stuff on YouTube and sharing it on YouTube and Facebook, see what they're able to generate for themselves, or people that just put their work out there. Or I always find it really weird when singers, for example, or actors who can sing, don't just, you know, use social media to share their talent. All it takes is one person to see that and just, I know someone who ended up getting an opportunity because of YouTube, got, a YouTube video that they put up, and they ended up getting a manager in the US, and, and but remember, you have to be ready. You can't just do these things and not be ready, but doing these things is part of a general preparation for being the talent that they think you are based off of what they've seen. So it's no good just putting one painting up or one like little video of you singing and that's the only song you know, or that's the only painting you've done. Do you get what I mean? It's got to be part of a bigger overall thing. But still, use that time, because if you're in this just for money, this is what I find frustrating sometimes about some creators, is if you're only in this for jobs where you're gonna get paid, you're creating a vicious circle, because you're not getting practiced so that you are good enough for those paid jobs. You do have to work for free, and don't think of it as working for free. Just treat it like training, man. That's your job. Unfortunately or fortunately, if you are, and this doesn't just apply to creatives actually, if you want to be able to do a job well, you have to take responsibility for your own training if you're self-employed. So I kind of find it bewildering sometimes that creatives sit on their asses all day, don't do anything, don't write, don't make anything, don't create anything, and then get riddled by nerves or something when they finally go into an audition, or they get an opportunity, or they have to sing for the first time and they've never, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, dude, you've got to start, you've got to be in process, so that it's like trying to jump on a moving treadmill from a standing start. You're gonna be a YouTube video. Do you know what I mean? If you try that, you have got to be running at the same speed when the opportunity comes along. Or to put it another way, you must be vibrating at the same frequency as that opportunity when it comes along. Because if you are not, it will broadside you, or you will not be able to meet it, match it. What it will be asking of you will be beyond what you're able to give. George says, Shmai die. Is that Welsh? I don't know what just happened there, George. I don't know. Anyway, she says, great quote. Phil says, hey, thanks for going live again, and I'll catch up when on what I've missed out. Okay, no worries. Tanya's joined. Hey, and Dipole says, thank you loads. That quote led to my creation. Ah, yes, that's right. Created the whole superhero. Manny Security Guru says, thumbs up. All right, so that flow one, there was actually more to say about that than I thought. With the flow thing as well, sometimes when you get those down times, it can look like, it's stagnant, nothing's moving. And I don't know if you remember the thing that I said where I was like grading the day based on different criteria, and then when I took the overview, I could see that actually things were okay. Most of the time in those flow states, most of the time when you're observing your relationship with the flow state, most of the time when you take a bird's eye view, i.e. a long-term view, like maybe a few months or the whole year maybe, things aren't usually as bad as they might feel in that moment. Because usually it's in the moment that you're just like, fuck, like there's no opportunities or whatever. But when you look over the course of the last 3 months and you'll see, actually I've been getting opportunities regularly. It just happens to be for these last, I don't know, week or 2 weeks or whatever it may be, that things haven't quite worked out. So when you feel like things aren't quite right, or they're not going as you hoped, take a bird's eye view of it, and then get a more, that'll give you a more objective appraisal of what's so. And then from there, if you feel something needs to change, maybe you have to have some time of reflection. And again, this is another part of the process, part of the journey of being a creative, is it isn't all like thrashing away, work. Sometimes you need to take a second to just reflect. Okay, so you might have taken this bird's eye view and just felt like, things aren't going quite as I want them to, or I'm too busy. That's as valid a problem as not busy enough, or not busy in the right way. That's another thing that can happen. So you might want to take a moment to reflect. And I think that is a a natural and useful and valid sort of use of your time and space that's worth making in your creative life. Even if everything seems fine, you know, it is worth just taking a moment to reflect, either whether it's taking yourself away, going on holiday, stopping work for a sec, you know, taking a week off, and just, you know, because it's very easy to get into this mindset that you have to keep grinding, because a lot of freelancers, they do have this mindset of like, well, you never know where you never know when the work's going to dry up, which is true. And I have the same thing myself, but then sometimes you just have to trust, and you have to remind yourself, actually, you know, your rest and recovery is as important to your process as you know, being in constant work. I remember Hugh Dennis saying that in a, you know, he's one of the regular panelists on Mock the Week, and it's like, that guy seems to have a job for life. As long as Mock the Week's there, at least he will be doing that. But even he, I remember saying, was you know, had concerns about, he literally takes it wasn't an interview, I think we were having a conversation, and he said that, you know, he takes every opportunity that probably not every opportunity, but that he takes a lot of opportunities that come his way, because he still has that same you never know like vibe that us self-employed people have. But sometimes that moment to just reflect, look back, look at your situation, just take a breather. Is this what I want? You know, it sounds ridiculous to say, oh, I'm too successful, but if you're successful in a field you're not feeling, then that success is never gonna you know, have the value that you would like it to. And it doesn't matter how much success you create, how much income you create, it's gonna feel you know, like a hollow success, because it isn't filling you up in all ways. And let me tell you, I've been to the front line, I can tell you that is a big friggin' deal. If what you're doing does not fill you up, it doesn't matter what you earn. I promise you. And I'm not the only one that says this. You speak to anyone who's touched success in a way that didn't satisfy them. Look at Matthew McConaughey. He was probably one of the most successful actors in Hollywood, but what he was doing was not working for him. Was he successful? Hell yeah. Was he happy doing it? Hell no. And that's why he took himself away, went bike riding with Lance Armstrong, and did all kinds of other things other than be in rom-com movies. And look what he became. Look what that space allowed him to be able to create. So this reflection or moment to assess or time out is not it's an important thing, right? So just say hello to some people. I don't know why I did an Australian accent, literally no reason. George says Welsh. Yes, cool, got it. Manny Security Guru says you have to do the work. Correct. Peely Defeato de Jovens has joined, and Sing is Queer has joined, and Adam J Spencer 123, and Sing is Queer says thank you for the reminder. 100. And Aussie Dinny 63. Guys, hats off to me for getting these getting these names out. And Carly says spot on, same experience in post-production. Right, exactly. Carly worked in post-production, and do you mind me, I hope you don't mind me sharing a little bit of what you shared with me about that. But that basically Carly was, you know, got into post-production, and it was kind of a mission, but once there and you know, successful and generating work, I believe you were freelance, were you free? No, you were employed at one point, weren't you? But it just wasn't, thanks Carly, cool. I tried to keep it very general, but yeah, it just wasn't filling her up, and then she just had this calling to turn her hand to painting, and now she's a very successful painter with a publisher, and she works full-time in that job. So that appraisal, that moment to assess is so important, because otherwise you convince yourself that there's no other options, you're on rails, you've got no other choices, and you stick with it when it isn't. Why would you do that if it's not making you happy? But you need that moment to reflect, to turn the ship around if that's not what you want. Manny says you have to reflect on what you've done, where you've been, and where you're going. Correct. And Carly says she was freelance at BBC and Channel 4. Okie doke. So one little caution is just to not allow this reflection to become procrastination, which, you know, it can do. I won't say any more than that, because we've talked about procrastination before. Yeah, so yeah, so basically you may have this moment of reflection, just seeing what's going on. Like I say, everything could be okay, but still it's good to just check and go, am I okay that everything's okay? Am I okay that this is the kind of okay that I want? Okay, and then carry on. Or it may be that you need to make decisions. And again, like the starting process, Solid Gone John has joined, and Pastor oh, I'm just going to say pastor because I always struggle. But hi. You know, you may feel that everything's okay and you're good to carry on as you are, or you may need to make decisions, and decisions, just like the starting process, they're an important part of your journey as a creative. There will always be decisions to make. Sometimes there'll be decisions that are like that you want to stop, that you want to change things, that you want to break, that you want to do things differently. Anthony Robbins, and I don't know if I subscribe to this, so I'm going to share it and you see how it lands with you. But he says, make decisions quickly, change your mind slowly. So if you make a decision about something, don't sit on the fence with it. I mean, there's a difference between considering it, getting all the facts, getting all the evidence, and dithering. Because while you're dithering, you're kind of in a no man's land. There's no right way to make decisions, basically. My overarching point is that it's an important part of the creative journey, and will always be something that you'll have to do. You'll have to decide whether you want to go with this agent or that agent, whether you want your work hung in that gallery or that gallery. There's always, do you want to stop doing whatever it is you're doing and try something new? You know, there's always going to be decisions that you are going to be required to make, and just like embrace them. I was on a program and they said that, and this is not quite the same thing, but in a way it relates. And I've shared this with you guys before. It was a landmark. Was it the Forum? Yeah, I think it might. Actually, they were talking about the advanced course that they do, which I did. And they were saying how people think that life is about getting rid of your problems. And this woman was saying, it's not about getting rid of problems. You just want classier problems in your life. You know, instead of having the problem, how am I going to feed my kids? You want the problem, I need to get more employees because my company is outgrowing the number of employees it has. Do you know what I mean? So it's not like you're never going to have problems. You just want those problems to get classier and classier as your career progresses. Damn it, my house is too small. I've got, you know, with my family's grown, or do you know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about when I say this. So it isn't about, and it's the same with decision making. You don't want to never not have to make a decision. You just want those decisions to be classy decisions. Should I go to this premiere, or should I go to this fashion show, or whatever floats your boat are important, or is important to you. So decisions will always be a part of what we do, and actually, you know, the more you do it, the more skilled you become at making good choices for yourself. Because, you know, there's some people who are just terrible at making great decisions for themselves. They're not practiced at it, and they don't learn from the outcome of the terrible decisions. So, you know, welcome them. I don't know if I can say create situations where, I don't know how you would do that, but at least welcome the decisions that are being asked of you, and don't shy away from them. I've seen people's lives just like flatline just from the fear of making a decision about something. You know, you don't want to. If you live the same life for 30 years, you're not living 30 years. You're living the same 1 year 30 times. You know, so and it's not that there's a right and a wrong around that. It's just like, is that what you want? You know, that's really why I say that. Not to say your life should be different every single year. No, if you want that, then cool. But if that wasn't what you set out for your life, then don't shy away from decisions and taking risk, because that is what creates change. And actually, when things stay the same, actually they atrophy. So you need to have a little bit of change in your life all the time just to stay where you are. That's actually the fact of the matter. So if you keep everything the same, actually it's the same. It's like it's a similar thing to how inflation is. If you have £10 today, it is not worth the same in a year's time. It's worth £9.99 or whatever in real terms or whatever. So same as what you're putting into your life, it's not worth the same today as it will be in a year's time. So you do have to keep adding into it, keep making decisions, keep taking the odd risk here and there to be able to have it grow and bloom. Manny says, I think that's a self-belief thing about making instinctive decisions. I always go with my gut instinct, which allows me to make decisions quickly. Reference Tony Robbins. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yes, you've got to believe in yourself to be able to make decisions for yourself, because if you don't, then you're not going to trust your own decisions. So I think you're right about that. I only do them when choosing what to eat from a menu. I think that's all of us, Manny. I think that's all of us. Natural Hair Trends has joined. Welcome. Okay. So then along with the decision making comes risk. Now, if you've gone into the creative industries, you're already taking a massive risk, because there are no guarantees in this line of work. But risk, it can pay off. And it's all a risk, really, isn't it? But yeah, risk is part of the decision-making thing. And, as long as they're calculated, as long as they're not wild, like, gambles as opposed to risk, then they're an important ingredient. Now, I remember one time a financial advisor saying about how much of your investments should be risky, how much should be high risk, mid risk and low risk. And I think that's the same in our lives, as you don't want all of your decision making or your outlook on your creative life to be all high risk. You don't want to be, I'm not going to bother trying to find examples that match what we're all doing, but you know what I'm saying, yeah. Or you don't want them all to be mid risk. You want a little bit of high risk, a bigger section mid risk, and a larger section low risk. What that means in your world is, I'll leave that to you to interpret. But it is occasionally good for the soul to take a few big risks every now and again. Now, what could that look like? Maybe doing a job that you feel might be a little bit beyond what you're capable of. Investing in yourself in a way that has no guarantees. That could look like a course. That could look like, for some actors going and doing a reconnaissance trip to LA. As long as what would be high risk is if you had no credits on your acting CV and you moved to LA and you had no agent and you had no training. That would be all high risk. But if you've already got a few of those elements in place and you go for a month during pilot season or just after, in the context of all that you're doing to try and forward your career, that's a kind of a smart move. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So a little bit of risk as part of your journey is always a good thing. Manny says, we are biological organisms. We have to grow or we're dying. Yes. And Cy Cocker has joined, and Amber says, kind of like when I moved to New. No, Amber, you had directed a film, you've been in your short film as well. You've done a bunch of other stuff, and it looks like it's kind of all coming together and working out very nicely. Come on now, let's be positive language. Okay, so then another part of what we're going to experience on our journey, success and failure. And the thing about success, probably the thing that I'm going to, because we've obviously had a very long conversation about success in a previous live chat. Can't remember what number. I feel like it was 5. No, it wasn't 5. Anyways. There is a whole conversation that we had around success. But one of the things that you want to meet success with is grace and humility, because there are things that are going to change if you become successful by whichever way you define that. Your team might change. And there's going to be some letting go. There's going to be some letting go of things that you no longer need to do, no longer can do. There's going to be changes to the way that some people treat you. And this is where the grace bit comes in, because it's very easy to allow success to feed some idea that you might develop of yourself. And It's happened. I've done it, and I'm sure lots of people do it, and especially in the first blushes of it, you're suddenly like, ooh, this means something about me, and it don't. So how people treat you is going to be different. What your finances look like is going to be different. What's possible for you is going to be different with success. What your exposure is, what people's expectations of you are, of you, your expectations of yourself, all these things can change as a result of success. And the way to keep your feet on the ground is to remain gracious and humble. So when you lose sight of those two, I think that's when your success can become ungrounded, basically. I don't know if you remember when around the time of Gavin and Stacey and really took off, and James Corden was getting and I think he probably is aware of himself and who he was being at that time. Now I think he's got enough about him to be able to look back on that time and see that he probably wasn't being the best version of himself. And the sort of pinnacle came, for me anyways, of what I experienced was I saw him at the British Comedy Awards, and he won a best comedy. He won an award for one thing, and then he won an award for something else. So he was back on stage a second time, and his attitude was kind of like, how come that other thing that I didn't win an award? He said when he was on stage collecting an award. And so I think you understand what I'm getting at. And that isn't to say that's who I think he is. I'm just saying it can happen to anybody, especially the scale. And it doesn't even matter the scale of the success that can happen. I've seen people who have had minimal success be dicks, basically, and people who have had huge successes just stay completely grounded, their feet on the ground, so it isn't even the success, it's what your brain interprets with it and turns it into, what meaning it derives. And just know that the most important thing is to keep your feet on the ground, to remain gracious and humble in that. And because failure can happen too, fails can happen too, and they're a valuable part of the process. And like I said earlier, who says you can only have one go at this? Who says that one attempt that may have been quite public was the go? Maybe there's another go, waiting, another script that was meant to succeed or whatever. So take the lessons from the failure and remain gracious and humble in both, actually, in the successes and the failures. And then life can never broadside you, because the more cocky you get about the successes, the more life will chop the legs from underneath you with a failure. If you're humble in all of that, then the failures won't take your legs from underneath you, because you're already on your knees in thankful prayer and graciousness and humility. Yeah. Okay. Martin, hi. Amber says, yes, but I was a total novice coming here with 2 suitcases and hella high hopes. I wouldn't change a thing. It's worked out amazingly. Yeah, I'm proud of you for that as well. It worked out. It worked out. The thing is, you say it's a risk, but you went to study as well, so I think that's more calculated of a risk than just turning up with your knapsack on your back. I think you were pretty smart about it. You knew what you were doing. You had a plan, girlfriend. You had a plan. So Rido Boy 94 is joined. Hi. All right, so what else? Oh, endings, guys, very much a part of the journey as well. Just need a little sip of something. Cold sencha tea. Okay. So some things will always end. There will always be ends of things. And that is very much a part of the journey. It's very much a part of the journey, and nothing is forever until it's not. I say all this to say that nothing goes on forever, basically. in our journeys, there are going to be things that we want that are going to have that are going to come to an end before we want that. But actually, there's blessings in that. There are things that we're going to choose to end because it is done, to quote the end of the Matrix. And there are things that, are going to fizzle out, that are just not going to work out. And there are things that are going to naturally come to an end and feel great. But endings, like beginnings, like we said about starting, they're all so much a part of the process. And, I find some endings really emotional, like the end of Curfew, like my last day of filming, which happened to be the last day of filming for quite a few people. I was like, I couldn't even really say goodbye to people because I was just, I don't know what, I didn't even see that coming because we had spent so many months like cold and outside in the dark at night. Like there was a part of me that just couldn't wait for it to be over just because of what we had to go through physically. I mean, I loved the job, but still. But then on the last day, the director, I was like, okay, bye. Like to the fellow cast, I was like, okay, bye, see you. So I guess what I'm getting at is don't feel like you should feel a particular way about the end of something. Sometimes it's going to feel jubilant, sometimes it's going to feel sad, sometimes it's going to be a combination of all those things. But that discovery that we made a while ago about life just dangling a carrot to keep you journeying, and actually the journeying is what life wants. It wants you to go through all of these things. It wants you to go through all these ups and downs and emotions and have life chip away at you and forge you or whatever, like, so that at the end you're this gilded, sculpted, beautiful thing called I had a life, or I lived, or something like that. So don't shy away from all these big experiences that this kind of life is going to give you, because that is what makes you a, sort of beautiful, rounded, incredible, important, interesting person. And the heartbreak of something ending, or the emotion, it might not be heartbreak that you experience, but the emotion of something ending is always gonna be hard, but it's gonna shape you in a particular way that's really profound. And so the journeying that we're talking about here never really ends, unless I suppose you were to get a job or something like that. But then even still, the journey called life is still going on. There's always lessons to be learned. There's always decisions to be made. There's always life tantalizing, a risk. There's always a moment to an opportunity for reflection, of assessment, of just seeing what's next. But the enemies are complacency. The enemies of journeying well, basically, are complacency, arrogance, and comparison. I would say in our field, particularly, that is a real thing. The friend of journeying well is openness, humility, tenacity, and your joy. If you are happy in what you are doing, that is the biggest gift that you can give the world, because I promise you, people who are living in their joy because they are doing what makes them happy, joyful, a high vibration, don't do terrible things. Basically, they uplift the world, and people gravitate to them. They want to be around people who are living in their joy. So that, if you want to be of service, if you're like searching for something, some way of being of service, start with that. Be joyful, be happy in what you do. Find things that set you on fire and light you up, and then let that light other people's way. Phil says, genuinely could zone out and listen to you all night. You're an amazing... Okay, thank you, Phil. It's very kind of you. Sean says, how did you cope with a sudden ending that was out of your control? How did you feel? Well, I think if you're talking about Curfew, I was very emotional. But it wasn't even sudden in the sense of I knew it was coming, because obviously we know what our last day is going to be. But I was saying to someone recently, what's very difficult with productions, be it a play or a TV show or something like that, is that if you work in an office, when you leave that office, you can always go back. Usually the people are still there and the building is still there and all the rest of it. With a TV show or a theatre production or something like that, it all gets dismantled. You know, if you go back to where a TV show was shot, there might just be a field, you know, or there might just be a new production in there, or there might be a new play on at that theatre. You know, so that's what's difficult, I think, about TV shows and theatre productions. But I'll tell you this, I wouldn't change it for the world, because those what feel like lows are actually, that's being alive. You know, feeling that you can't feel that sorrow unless you've loved. You know, I couldn't have felt that sad about this job if I hadn't have loved it as much as I'd loved it. You know, I was watching John Galecki, I think that's how you pronounce his name, who plays Leonard in The Big Bang Theory, and they were doing this kind of like these interviews about The Big Bang Theory coming to an end, and the homeboy could not stop crying, and I was so touched by that, because I thought to myself, this guy loved his job. You can feel that this guy just loved this job. Can you imagine being so in love with your job like that even just talking about the end of it, I don't even know if they'd even filmed it at that point, but just talking about the end of it just moved you. And tears aren't necessarily always about sadness. Sometimes something is so beautiful that it moves us to tears. And I think that maybe that's part of what I was experiencing at the end of curfew as well. It's just I was so profoundly moved by having had this experience and a family for this 5 months, this, you know, manufactured family for 5 months, and all the things that we've been through, and the highs and the lows and the cold and the beast from the east and the cars and the crashes and the near accidents, and, you know, or maybe I shouldn't say that, you know, all the things that happened to us, and now it was over. But like I say, if you haven't loved that much, then you can't feel that much emotion about it. So it's a gift to feel that strongly about something like that. That's a very long answer to your question, Sean, but that's what it is. Tanya's doing heart eyes, and she says, I had a life. Got me all emotional here. Yeah, well, that's what it is at the end. Well, there's a poem, something about, you know, getting to the end of your life all beaten up and worn out. That's how you should get to the pearly gates, or whatever it is that's at the end. Not all pristine. I never made a decision or took a risk. You don't want to. Why? You want to be worn out, wrung out, used up. You had a life. Andy Foster, hi. All right. So, guys, the question is, what do you Sean says thanks anyway, you got there. Yeah, I got there in the end. So the question, let's ask the question about the projects. Now, look, in theory, the projects should end on the 31st, but I am not able to do this conversation on the 31st. The next one I can do is going to be the 7th of April. Don't worry, I'll be posting about this online on Instagram, and that's going to be a Q&A. So come to that session with questions, answers. Well, questions. Hopefully I have answers. Comments, thoughts, anything like that about anything we've talked about. So by then you will have finished the project should have come to an end. We said 3 months, and that 3 months actually finishes on the 31st. And then, so that 7th of April is going to be a Q&A. Then on the 21st of April, because again, got things going on. So the 21st is the next one I can do. We're going to discuss the projects, because I don't want us to, you know, all finish our projects and then not talk about them. So that whole thing is going to be about the projects. Then on the 28th, we're going to talk about the future. What next? What is next after all this? We've been through a year. If some of you guys have been with me almost the entire journey, a year and almost a year and a half we've been doing this. And we've got 3 more to go. So then that last one, we're just going to talk about what next. But for now, my question, as I say, I ask a question about the projects at the end of every session. This time, my question is, what has this project made possible? What has your project allowed you to be able to do? What has it given you? What have you seen as a result of it? What is present now that wasn't at the start of this process? Sean says, can we talk about cream eggs then? Yes or no? It will be Easter. We'll see, Sean. Amber says, it's been epic. Thank you. And Lek V has joined. yeah, so does anyone want to share anything about what's been made possible by them undertaking their project? And maybe in your comment also say, in a couple of words, or a few words, what your project is, because I don't have my list. Well, my list is on my phone, and my phone is my light source, so I won't be able to look. So Amber says, I think it made getting a theatre film agent a tiny bit easier with connections. Excellent. So can you say a bit more about that? So in the process of undertaking your project, you started to build up more of a network of connections with people? Ah, gotcha. Okay. So in the process of trying to get 2 voiceover gigs by March the 31st, it's helped you to get a theatre film agent. Got it. Sean says, sure, I'm almost there with my project. Say a little bit about what your project is, Sean, and what's been made possible as a result of you doing it. And you can say how it's going as well, if you like. Tonya says, by the way, one of my goals as I joined in the middle of the talks was sending out a master's application, and I sent them 3 days ago. Painter's life. Yes. Congrats. That's great. And so now what's possible as a result of that, Tonya? Because, I'm guessing that level of education is going to open some stuff up. It says, building a network of people within the industry I'm in, they're talking about me. Yes, but that's how it starts. You just need to make fans of people. That's really how it works, and you don't need loads. This is why I always used to say, when people are talking about networking and all that, you don't have to say, for example, with actors, sometimes they want to email or write to or postcard every casting director. You don't need to do that. Just nurture 10 who make shows that you want to be in. If you say if you're something niche like musical theatre, go to the people that cast those shows and make friends with them and bother them. Get to know them, because then you're more likely to get into the field you want to get to. If you scattergun everybody, then you're going to end up. It's a waste of your energy, really. Not to say this is what you did, Amber, but I'm saying you're doing the right thing by starting to build up a network and have people talk about you. Mum Life with Tony, hi, and Eki Maria, hi. And Amber says, for sure. George says, my project has temporarily paused as I had to move again. Oh, wow. Okay. Need to find new networks now and restart. You're writing, George, if I'm not mistaken. Has the writing had to stop as well? Tonya says, I hope to have more credentials as an artist and then be able to apply for scholarship or residency and not spend as much time on paid and bills work. Got it. So that's kind of what's possible out of that. So things are opening up, and this is what I mean as well about that driving with the headlamps thing, is that the part of the journey called applying for the masters, then that reveals what's possible next out of that, and then that next thing reveals what's possible out of that. But before driving to the part of the journey called applying for the masters, those things beyond it might not have appeared. They might not have been illuminated, but as you journey, they become illuminated. Hugh Terry's just joined. Hiya, just about to go. Okay, guys, so like I say, next week I'm traveling and things. So next week we won't be having one of these, but that is kind of the official end of the projects. But if you want to extend it and just chug away until we meet again on the 7th, more than happy to do that. And the 7th, like I say, will be a Q&A session. So we basically, the session is built by you. So come with whatever questions, comments, thoughts that you want to share, and I will do my best to navigate them through. If there's things that you're working on and you feel are like things that you're struggling with that you want to sort of tease out and get comment from me or even the rest of the group, then please come with that, because I'm not bringing anything to the table at all. This is going to be a co-creation between me and you. And so whatever you bring is whatever it will become. So Tonya says, your talks made it so much easier to just take all my mind chatter garbage as a background noise. Vulnerability makes us strong. So thanks a lot. Well, that is my goal. That makes me very happy. Oh, countdown. So listen, guys, I will see you on the 7th. Bye.